right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Higher Journeys. And if it's your first time here, of course, welcome. Well, I'm doing a little chuckling these days because invariably when I try to plan something that would include the show that I do weekly, it just doesn't work out. It has not been working out in the last couple of weeks. Well, you know what? Ultimately, it does work out because it ends up being exactly what it's supposed to be. But the interview that you're about to see with former naval radar operator, and I'm going to give you his formal title in a minute because it's long. My interview with him that you're absolutely going to love was originally planned as a video one-on-one. And the last couple of times, this just has not been working out. Now, we know the internet is definitely strained with so many of us working from home these days and students working from home with their schoolwork, etc. So I'm not going to sweat it. We ended up having to go to audio. It was still a wonderful conversation. And it's a unique conversation because I'm going to be engaging Kevin in a conversation that has less to do with the encounter that I know many of you are familiar with. We're, of course, talking about the 2004, what has been called the Tic Tac incident or the Nimitz incident, that which was the impetus for a whole lot of hoopla in the mainstream having to do with the Pentagon's secret UFO program or UAP program, etc. Kevin Day was obviously at the center of that for what he witnessed. But today we're going to be going into the personal side of his story. And when I tell you it's got a lot of layers and a lot of dimensions and a lot of blessings, I mean it. Let me give you a little of the background for those of you who don't know, and you'll have to forgive me. I've got to read this because it's very, very specific, very, not something that I can memorize. Kevin Day is a retired United States Navy senior chief petty officer, a former operations specialist, and Top Gun air intercept controller with more than 20 years experience in strike group air defense, including wartime operations. He's an expert operator of the highly advanced Spy-1 radar system with years of service on board the AEGIS or AEGIS equipped ships, including the VINCENNES, I don't know if I'm saying that right, CHOSIN and Princeton. Kevin has logged hundreds of air-to-air intercepts of suspect aircraft in both training and wartime operations. And that's just a little tidbit of his bio. Of course, we're going to have the full bio available to you actually on the Higher Journeys website. Nonetheless, that's who Kevin is. You've seen Kevin for sure, and you certainly have heard his story. But again, we've been planning this interview for some months now, and with everything going on, again, I was wondering if we'd be able to pull it off, and we did have a little bit of a glitch here and there. As a matter of fact, you're going to hear where there was a big glitch at the end, but nonetheless, we were able to go on with the show. It was wonderful, and if you've heard Kevin's story, if you know that when I say story, I'm talking about the chronology of what happened, what he witnessed back in 2004 off the coast of San Diego on the USS Princeton, where he witnessed for several days an anomalous spectrum of UFOs or UAPs. Again, this is not what this is about. This is about his personal, how his life changed personally, and it changed in big ways. So without further ado, I present to you my conversation with Kevin Day. Enjoy. Kevin Day, my friend, and I think I can call you a friend so quickly. We just met yesterday. But we have been having, even though it's been a broken up conversation because we have not been able to get on Skype. And as a matter of fact, Kevin is, I believe, outside right now on a landline at a family member's home because we just couldn't make the technology work, guys. But we had to bring this talk to you. We wanted to let you in on what we are discussing today. Of course, we're talking about COVID-19. Of course, we're talking about this drastic alteration or editing of our life. And I think, Kevin, I want to start out talking about that. We'd be remiss if we didn't bring that up first, and then we're going to get into some real juicy stuff that you want to share with our audience. So let me say welcome to Higher Journeys for the first time.
Thank you. It's my honor and pleasure to be here with you today, Alexis.
The pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. So, Kevin, we were talking offline before we clicked the record button, and I was asking you how you're doing. So I'd love for you to share with our audience in this age of surreal. How is Kevin Day doing?
You know, Alexis, I'm pretty blessed because of where I live and, the fact I'm retired and I kind of in a place where is easy to isolate compared to a lot of the other people that are not as blessed or in a situation or as fortunate as I've been. And I know that, I know that, and because of that, I'm taking measures to. My greatest fear in this, Alexis, is that I unknowingly contaminate somebody. The thought of doing that just really troubles me. So it makes me stay home and follow the CDC's guidelines and my local guidelines. Haven't even been down to the golf course because we had to close it. Everything's closed except for the stores,
right,
and the gas station, and the pharmacy.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the way it is across the board. I know that each jurisdiction, each state is sort of following their own sort of specific guidelines, but I think it's pretty much the same throughout. So have you been able to so I know you're sitting outside right now, but have you been able to take some walks and get a little bit of sun? I know it's raining today.
Oh yeah, I live on 9 acres, and there's kinds of trees, and I go out and my big thing is I like to hit golf balls, so I've been going out a lot hitting golf balls over the trees, around the trees, and through the trees.
Beautiful.
Some days I'll be out there for hours on end just hitting golf balls. There must be 1,000 golf balls on my property in the grass,
Well, as long as you're not aiming for or hitting any wildlife, I think you'll be fine.
No, I'm not. I don't do that. Or windows, for that matter.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you sound well, and we take it day by day. As I said to you before, we had planned this video chat, as many people are doing these days. Didn't want to work, and then you had said, well, you can send me some questions, and I said, nope, absolutely not. I want the people to hear your voice. I want the people to feel you. And we're going to do this voice to voice. So God willing, once we hang up and I go into production, because computer's been acting really weird, guys. I don't know. Now, I know the internet is definitely slower because we've got so many people working and going to school online. But whatever. So we're not going to sweat it. We're just going to let it happen. And I bet you it's going to be one of the best conversations I have had all year on Higher Journeys, right? So.
Thank you. And I did have another thought about this COVID-19 stuff. Honestly, Alexis, I think there's a silver lining to this for sure. I'm trying to look beyond this and trying to think ahead a little bit. And I guess that's why I kind of had the nickname of the seer, because I see what's about to happen. I really do. For one thing, I think a lot of really smart people are finally realized that having all of our critical supply chains and a lot of our critical manufacturing in China is a really dumb idea. We need to bring that stuff home, and that's gonna create a lot of jobs when that does happen, and it's gonna happen, believe me. And there's other benefits to this thing. I mean, as bad as this coronavirus is, and it's horrible, man, it could be so much worse, and the world was not prepared for this. So the other good news out of this is the next time, God forbid, this ever happens again, I think the world's going to be a lot more prepared next time. I really do, and I'm really hanging on to those hopes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Look for the good. Look for the good as best I can in this, and that's what I see coming.
I love that attitude. And you and I think, have shared that sentiment. We had a chance to speak offline a little bit yesterday, even though we couldn't get on air, and I think we share that sentiment. There are, as I have said many times, I'll say it again, the magic exists within the madness, the crystal within the crisis, the diamond within the dust. But it's up to us to determine what that magic crystal or diamond is, and how it'll be utilized. So there's a spiritual component, there's a practical component that you just brought up. But yeah, there are going to be many blessings to come. Living side by side with the madness, sure. So we implore each and every one of you out there. I call my audience the journeyers. So I implore each of the journeyers to go find that little nugget of gold, because it's there, masked as craziness. So there you have it.
Amen.
Amen and amen again. Well, listen, shall we delve into, I have to say, guys, I am so excited, delighted, and grateful that Kevin Day has decided to have a conversation with me and with all of us that he hasn't really had with too many. Now, I know you've given a lot of interviews thus far, We know your background at this point. You have done the circuit, if you will, in the most positive of ways. You've been speaking at conferences about the famous Nimitz encounter. We're talking about 2004. We're talking about the anomaly that I know has made an indelible print on your mind forevermore. We know I should say, many of you out there know the story at this point, and we're going to make sure we have a couple of links to interviews that you've given, Kevin, that I've seen where you'll go into the chronology of actually what happened. That's not what we're going to do here today, though. We're going to talk about something that you shared with me is perhaps the most integral or passionate part of this whole thing to you, or important, let's just say, and that is the effect of what this has had on you, who you have become as a result of it. Let's get into that. Where
I'm ready to roll. Well, let me start at the beginning.
Okay.
When this event went down in 2004, I was really, really frustrated because I knew for a fact those objects were real, and I knew they were, at the very least, they were a safety to air navigation, because I was an air intercept controller. That was my business. I used to design air defense exercises for our strike groups. I was a senior guy in the strike group doing that on the enlisted side of the house. I worked directly for the air defense commander on the USS Princeton, and when this happened and no one seemed to care about it, I was really troubled by that. And it was like a couple weeks after the exercise was over, we went back to San Diego. I transferred to what turned out to be my last command in the Navy, Commander Naval Air Forces in Coronado, California, right across the Coronado Bay Bridge from the naval station. And I tried to tell people, and no one wanted to listen. So I retired, and my concerns didn't retire though. I started to have really, really bad nightmares. My fears manifested into some astrological type dreams, like end of the world type stuff, and just out of the blue. And we all have bad dreams, and the dreams themselves didn't really bug me that much, but when I would remember the dream the next day, that really did bug me, and it started to affect my work. And at this point in time, I didn't relate what I was going through back to the Tic Tac thing. I thought maybe, I'm just having trouble transitioning out of the Navy, and this is what people sometimes go through. But anyway, things went to hell in a handbasket. I ended up quitting my job, and I ended up moving to Sacramento. I ended up going to school, which was a good thing. And during that time, my wife became really frustrated, so we ended up separating. And I graduated from Sac State, got my master's in education technology, moved back to my hometown in Southern Oregon, a little town called Cave Junction, where I grew up. And during this time, I had become obsessed with an idea, and this is part of the phenomenon, by the way. People, Diane Pasulka, the author of American Cosmic, talks a lot about this in her book. People become obsessed after the encounters, and I'm going to get to the reason why I'm going into depth on this in just a minute. But I ended up in the wilderness. I became obsessed with this idea that I could find the mother lode to a mining claim that had been in our family since 1918. And the only reason why they shut it down is because World War II broke out, and everyone went to the four directions on the compass. And then by the time they got back home, water giants had been banned or outlawed, and they couldn't mine the way they were doing it anymore. And I don't have a geology background or anything, but for some reason I was directed and guided through that whole process, and lo and behold, I did find the source of the gold. I really did. It turned out it was 154 million year old sea bottom that had somehow got stuck out on dry land that is called an ophiolite. And this one's called the Josephine ophiolite. And about 100 feet below the ground at our mining claim there's a major deposit of gold ore that had been laid down by hydrothermal vents out on the bottom of the ocean a long time ago. And that became the source of the gold. And one of the reasons why I was able to figure that out is because before my grandfather had passed, I was interviewing him about this. He said, "Kevin, man, you got it wrong. We weren't mining nuggets and stuff. In fact, the gold that we found was dust in the dirt, and if you looked at it through a microscope, it looked like snowflakes." And that kind of told me that whatever that source of that gold was, it wasn't coming from very far away. Otherwise, instead of looking like a snowflake, it would be all bent up and look like a little tiny ball bearing. So putting that glued together with some other tales that the family had told, and putting it together with some satellite imagery that I was able to get a hold of, and the geologic research that had been published in the area, and I kind of revalidated, without knowing I was even doing it, a field of geology called geomorphology. And I was able to use geomorphology to actually discover not only where that gold was coming from, but how it came to be there. And the cool part of this story is no one in my family wants to mine it ever, because it's right in the middle of the wilderness. And there is no way in hell I'm going to my grave knowing I tore up that beautiful place to make a buck.
That's
and now bear in mind, I still hadn't put two and two together on this whole UFO thing. And I was living in the wilderness, man. I was homeless. I didn't have no money left. I was pretty much rudderless. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, and I didn't relate any of these things back to this situation. And a funny thing happened when we were back out in the mountains. My cousin was back there with me, and for some unknown reason, I started saying thank you to God. And I've never been a really religious person. I don't have a religion. But for some reason, I started telling God thank you, and I really mean it when I say it, It's from my heart.
I know you do. Oh, my gosh.
And when that happened, my life started to change. You can tell I get emotional about this because it's so real to me, And a funny thing started to happen. Like, it was really hot in the summer, right? When we were back there, it was the summer of 2014. And I would say something like, man, I'd sure like some ice cream. Man, it's hot out here. And a funny thing would happen, like the next day or the day after, a friend of ours would show up with ice cream. And this started to happen a lot. Like, we would mention something, we started to play games with it. Like, my cousin would say something weird like, marbles, Kevin. And then the next couple of days, a marble or marbles would somehow make an entrance into our life. It was just bizarre. We started playing games with it. For some reason, we or I were able to seemingly manifest stuff. I know that sounds crazy as hell.
No,
but
it doesn't.
It continues to happen. It's happened so much that there's got to be something to it. And it, as it turns out, it became really handy because when I came down off the mountain, winter chased us off the mountain. I ended up at on a friend's ranch in a 1974 22-foot trailer that my sister bought me on. I was staying on his ranch, waiting for the second house on his ranch to become available. I was going to rent it from him, but he ended up renting it to someone else. They were a medical marijuana grower, and I just couldn't touch that kind of deal. So I told him, I understand, Bob, and I understand. I'm going to go into the house. I'm going to go into town. I'm going to find a house. And he wished me luck. So I went into town and I sat down at a little restaurant here in town and was looking on Craigslist because my credit was still really bad from the downturn in '08. I had lost several houses and my life went to shit. And there was nothing. So I ordered breakfast and I got done. I got back on Craigslist, and all of a sudden there was this little house for sale, $70,000. And the weird thing is, Alexis, I knew the house. I'd been there many times when I was a little kid. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm no longer one, of course, today, but my mom used to take me there because the older lady that lived there, she really liked me a lot, and we used to stop there all the time. I knew this house, so I immediately emailed the current owners at the time, and they emailed me right back, and within one day I was in escrow. $20,000 down, a $50,000 note that they carried, and I was in a house. I thought it was a miracle. My dog agreed. We finally had a home again.
Right. May I interject, and I'm going to let you take a little bit of a breath because I know you're very emotional about it. I'm getting emotional, and I know that the audience will be as well in listening to this incredible story. These incidents. I'm sorry?
It gets better.
I know. Well, I'm going to let you take a breath and line it up. We're going to go as long as we need to. We've been taking our episodes a little bit shorter, but there's a lot to discuss here. And what else do y'all have to do these days, right? You're at home. But listen, Kevin, I want to bring up a couple of things. Now, I'm familiar with some of what you just explained because you were kind enough to send me some documents where you have chronicled some of these things, these very, very beautifully anomalous things that had happened to you, even though initially you did not connect this back to your incident. This reminds me, as I was going through this yesterday, I said to myself, this is really interestingly familiar to me as it relates to what are called contact modalities. I'm sure you're familiar with the FREE organization. They've since renamed themselves, but that's the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences, led by Ray Hernandez as well as Mary Rodwell. I know you know Mary.
Ray Andrew.
Yeah. So we're looking at something here because we're talking about synchronicities happening constantly. I call them synchronicity clusters. I do a lot of work in this area, so I'm familiar with how that seems to connect into other anomalous experiences, things that are happening in one's life, and synchronicities will be sort of, you're surrounded by them, including psychic effects. And I know you've had that, and I know you're going to talk about that as well. But I want to bring in at this point something called the Vallee-Davis effect, which I was somewhat familiar with, but not to the extent that you are at this point. I want to bring it to that, because this is where what I call contact modalities come into play. Let's talk about the Vallee-Davis effect. Well, you know what? Maybe I'm jumping ahead. Why don't you come back now that you've taken a breath? I wanted to give you a little time and talk about some of the other fascinating things that were happening in addition to all of these blessings, synchronicities. What else was happening with you that was piquing your interest?
Well, I think it's best to kind of bring them up as I describe what happened next.
Perfect.
Once I was in the house again. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I started to have a lot of free time, and I'd heard the local golf course here was having a lot of financial problems because, this used to be a booming lumber place, used to be a big booming mining place, used to be a big booming cattle place. All those industries are gone now. It's a struggling little town. And I said, you know what? I got free time. I'm going to go down there and volunteer. So I started showing up, and I did every job down there, from watering the course at night for free to the last thing I did was reopen the kitchen. And during that time, I'd met an older gentleman. His name was Robert Muswick. He was in World War II in Pearl Harbor. He was actually on a submarine out to sea when the Japanese attacked. But he came back into port, and he had the grim task of doing rescue and recovery operations. And he was older, and I didn't know it at the time, but he had about a year left to live when I met him. And I really liked the guy. He seemed to really like me. I went over to his house. We shared a lot of stories and stuff. And I didn't know it at the time, but he had told his family, hey, when I pass, none of you kids want this house because you're all off doing other stuff. Give Kevin, at least give him a chance to buy it. And you know what? They honored that, and I was able to buy that house. Believe it or not, I sold my other house out on Holland Loop Road, the one I had bought for $70,000 2 years before then. I sold it for $175,000, all cash, in a 30-day escrow. And it took every single penny of that money to get me qualified for a private lender so I could buy my new house. And another funny thing that happened, too, is one of the sons was still living there. He didn't have a place to go yet. He was waiting for a house to become available himself. And my sister came over, and they met, and they ended up getting married. Incredible, and I just absolutely, I love the place. It's 9 acres, got 2 houses on 9 acres. I'm helping to take care of some other people now that don't have no place to live, and I really, really love it there. I just really do. And the reason why I'm going through this is because I had forgotten all about the 2004 incident. And another thing happened because back in 2008, after I retired, because no one would listen to me, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a story. I'm going to fictionalize it, and I'm going to write the story about the Nimitz event, and I'm going to write some other short stories. I'm going to publish it all in the Library of Congress, just in case the story ever does become public, that my story will be proof, like contemporaneous proof that it really happened. And that's exactly what did happen. I just reopened the kitchen, and I hadn't hired on a waiter yet or a waitress. And for some reasons, I was back in the kitchen. I was watching a golf channel because the golf channel is almost always on at the golf course. And I walked out, and for some reason, CNN was on. I was like, what? Who turned on? And then I saw what was on CNN, and it was the the Tic Tac video.
Oh my goodness.
I had that same video the very next day after this in my email. I instantly knew what I was looking at.
Sure.
I was such shock. I dropped a plate of food and started crying.
Oh my God.
What?
So this was in
Why?
2017.
You know?
This was in 2017 that you saw it, obviously, because that's when the story broke. Of course, Leslie Keane broke the story in the Times. So, yeah. Wow.
I yelled, Dave, I got to go home. I'll explain later. I took off, went home, jumped on the internet. I wanted to see what the hell was going on, right? And Robert Powell, he's a associate with the Scientific Coalition Ufology, SCU. He had put it on YouTube already, so I went to the YouTube chat and I dropped the chat. I said, "Hey, Robert, man, I don't know you, you don't know me, but I was there, and you got to call me because I can validate that this really happened. I can tell you the background on it." So he obviously emailed me. We trade information. We start talking, and that got me into a group on Facebook called ATIP, just like the Pentagon program, named after it. And from that group of people, and one of them was, his name was Dave Beatty. He ended up doing the Nimitz Encounter video on YouTube that everyone's probably seen. And if you haven't, for those listening, if you just go to YouTube and do a search for the Nimitz Encounters, you'll see the video.
We'll find a link.
There's interviews on there.
Yeah, we'll find a link.
Very.
Yeah, we'll make sure.
Long story short is we have now formed a nonprofit called UAP Expeditions, and I've got some of the top scientists in our nation on our team. Believe it or not, physicists. I've got some Silicon Valley backers. I'm not going to drop any names here if that's okay for now.
Absolutely.
Because I'll end up missing some people and they'll get mad at me. So it's better just not to say any names, maybe. I'll send you the documents when we're done. We got this is all documented.
Great.
And we are going to we're going to rent 2 research ships. We're going back out to Southern California, COVID-19 permitting, of course, in December. And we're going to anchor one of the ships vicinity San Clemente Island. The other one's going to be underway. And we're loading up these ships with a bunch of brand new technologies. I'll just give you one example. One of the devices that we have, you can look. It's a night vision thing. You can look at, say, it's an airplane, and it'll turn that image of the airplane into a sound file. And then you turn that sound file back into an image. And we're trying to figure out some way. Okay, if we do find these things, how can we maybe use that to maybe even communicate with these things? Because I'm convinced that these things are real. Number one, they are real, and I believe that they're findable, and I also believe that they're knowable. We can figure out what the hell this stuff is, and we're going to go try. We're still in the organization and planning phases of everything. One of the professors at CUNY, quantum physicist at the university there in Albany, he's on our grant program through his physics lab, and we're coming online with some crowdfunding sources so we can get the money just to fund it. And luckily, everyone's doing this for free. We're all volunteers. So all of our costs are logistics, airplane tickets, hotels, rental type of stuff, rental of the ships.
And this is a nonprofit, Kevin, right? Is it a 501c3?
Wholly nonprofit,
okay, great.
Wholly nonprofit. I wouldn't be doing this at all to make money.
Right. I remember you. Yeah. I think I remember you with the documentation that you sent me. That I saw that it was I believe a 501c3. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help with that. We'll be talking obviously after this day is over. So
yeah. Well, one thing I'll just put a marker in right now. Once we do get the crowdfunding online, I will need some help promoting that just to make sure we have enough money to pull this off.
Consider it done.
All of our equipment's being donated to us for free, because one of the things we told some of these technology developers, hey, we'll test and evaluate your gear for free, and everyone really liked the sound of that. So we've got a whole bunch of some really cool technologies, because what I think happened in 2004, I think it was a result of a technology upgrade that the ship and the strike group had received, and it was top secret at the time. I didn't even know it had happened because I only had a secret clearance. I think that new technology suddenly allowed us to see something that maybe has been there for a long time.
Interesting.
So that's why I believe that, and a lot of the new technologies that we're going to have on the ships are very, very similar to what the Navy now has fleet-wide. And it also kind of explains why since 2004 there's been a lot of sightings, because now we were the first test platform. Now that technology is fleet-wide, so everyone's seeing these things now.
You know, it said, Kevin, that a sighting is reported every 8 seconds globally now. I don't know when those numbers were recorded or since when. I know it's recent. Every 8 seconds. As a matter
of... I know that.
Yes.
I didn't.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I want to come back to something that you said, just triggered a thought in my mind. When you went into, you said you were watching, you had the Golf Channel on, I believe, and interestingly, CNN ended up being on, and that's when you saw the Tic Tac, the report on the Tic Tac video. All of these things that are happening make me wonder. I wonder if you, at some very deep level, unbeknownst to you, had something to do with bringing this to the forefront. I'm not talking about this isn't a left brain thing. This is not a logic-based thought. But something you connected to, Kevin, based on that experience, it seems, changed you, and you became almost like a magnet for blessings, or I don't even know what word to use, but I'm wondering, you seem to have an effect on things around you. Do you know where I'm going here? I just feel
it's hard. It's hard for me because I'm just a normal guy, man. I don't see myself as a messenger or a...
Well, maybe we all are, though. But wait. You know, I get you're a humble person, and I want you to always stay that way. But, you know, when we have these experiences that are way beyond our comprehension, we don't understand what has happened and the mechanism that has made it so, but we know that we've changed. Or we know that something has been brought out of dormancy that was maybe always there. See, I happen to think that all people are extraordinary and have extraordinary capabilities. You, obviously, included. And
me too.
Really, I do. And something, let's assume that whatever connected to you was intelligent. We call it, I call it non-human intelligence. Opened that door for you, Kevin, so that you would be a physical conduit for, I would call it the Midas touch conduit, but not just about the physical stuff. Look at all the beautiful things you're doing, but also on some deep level, did your consciousness help to bring this story to the surface without anybody even realizing it, including you? Do you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah, and there's a story that I want to tell you about that kind of, that was a very nice segue to what I'm about to tell you. Mm-hmm. And this all leads back to the Vallee-Davis model. Jacques Vallée and Eric Davis are physicists. They wrote a paper called Incommensurability and the Physics of High Strangeness. And I'll get back to that in a minute. Okay. But I think it was like 2015. I was in my first house that I bought here for the $70,000 house. And I was over at one of my other friends' house, and I met these two guys there. And at the time, it seemed happenstance. But as it turns out, it wasn't. They showed up at my house the next day, and their cover story was, "Hey, Kevin, we can't really tell you who we are, but we're from the government, and we saw your mining report on the internet, and we want to train special forces down where your mining claim is because it's so damn rugged down there, and we want you to take us there." And I was like, I was suspicious right off the front, but very curious what they wanted. I wanted to play along too, so I took them along with some other friends of mine just in case I had something bad planned for me. And I took them back out there, and they never did tell me their true purpose, but they left a whole bunch of hints. So when this story broke on CNN and everything came to light, I was able to figure out their true purpose, and their purpose was validated to me by Luis Elizondo, by the way. When I told him this story that I'm telling you now, he said, "Yeah, I know them. I've exchanged emails with them, and they were at your house because of Tic Tac, Kevin, and because of the Tic Tac incidents." And one of the weirdest things that Shakate told me, he went by the name of Shakate. The other guy was Forrest. And if they're listening now, if I saw him today, I'd give them both big hugs because they really helped me. he looked me in the eye, and I think it was maybe the last thing he ever said to me, and he started almost crying. He was like, Kevin, you are incredibly important to what's about to happen. And I got to tell you, Alex, I thought he was crazy. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about at the time, because again, I didn't relate any of this back to the Tic Tacs yet. And when this story broke, soon after I discovered, now I was part of the story again. So of course I learned about Vallee-Davis and the Vallee-Davis model. And for those that don't know what that is, they basically take UAP UFO encounters and they break it into 6 layers of effects that happen. Everything from the physical effects of what the craft itself is doing, like layers 1, 2, and 3, and layers 5 and 6. The layer 5 is the human effects. People get changed by this. Suddenly they can heal stuff. They can seemingly manifest stuff.
Absolutely, yes.
And layer 6 is what we're doing now. It's called social effects. This happening now is a social effect. And when I finally laid my eyes on that document, the light went on. I was fine. Everything came together. The puzzle was complete. I was able to figure out what the hell had happened to me and why I had changed.
In a sentence, how would you describe what had happened to you? Now, we're talking about the after effects, but have you been able to get your arms around what happened to you?
This. No, that because I didn't know what was happening to me, it damn near cost me my life. You know, because it changed me, and I was in the wilderness. I mean, I didn't know what the hell was happening to me, and that's if I have a message, it's that if you happen to encounter these things, UAP UFOs, it's gonna affect you, and it's gonna change you.
Yeah.
It really is. And if I had known that was going to happen, it would have been a lot easier to deal with.
Right. But for some reason you weren't meant to know. Let me ask you this question, Kevin. Now, I know that what you witnessed when you were the radar operator and saw the Tic Tac, this was more than one day. This was several days, I believe. But how long, but here's my question. How long would you say each time you were in the midst of witnessing, how long did those intervals last at a time?
Well, we were about 90 miles or so off the coast of San Diego, down off to the southwest, and these objects would appear on my radar in the vicinity of Catalina Island, and they appeared in groups of between 5 and 10 at a time over the maybe about 10 days. And if I counted all the objects up and added them all together, about 100 objects altogether.
Wow. But how long let's say on one particular day, you got a glimpse of these things. You obviously didn't let your eyes leave what you were watching. Do you recall about how long it lasted? Where they
about
were?
2 hours.
Really?
They were approximately 100 miles to the north of us, and these things. The reason why they were weird is because, like the first group I saw was 28,000 feet. They were tracking south, but they were only going like 100 knots, which is really, really, really slow for that altitude.
Right. Well, listen.
And they were tracking south again, perpendicular to the prevailing winds.
Right.
So I was thinking to myself, what the hell flies like that?
Right.
I've been staring at Spy 1 radar for 18 years.
Well, you're the one that said this is not Newtonian. This is not classic physics. But before I lose my thought, this is what I want to bring up. The reason why I asked you how long at a shot, let's say, these sightings would last. Well, I got news for you. And I'm going to give a shout out to Steve Mera, who I haven't talked to for a while. I hope all is well with you guys over in the UK, Steve. Steve is a fantastic paranormal investigator as well as UFO investigator out of the UK. And he is the one that let me know, first of all, about the sightings happening every 8 seconds now being reported. But he also brought up the idea, based on their research, what they have discovered is that anyone who has had a sighting, just a sighting, you see a craft in the sky, UFO, UAP, for 10 minutes or more, the chances are high that it was more than a sighting, but a contact encounter. This is important, Kevin. This is the one thing that I have been itching to say to you. So after I discovered that you believed yourself to have some sort of an encounter, I had to know how long you were witnessing these sightings. You're telling me 2 hours? And what I'm saying to you is 10 minutes or more. And I don't know what the criteria that they were using to determine this, but what we're talking about here is a very likely contact, a very, very, perhaps even a close encounter. Have you been regressed yet? Have you thought about it? Have you done it?
I've thought about. Mary asked me if I wanted to do it, and at the time, the thought of doing it kind of scares me. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm gonna have to. But
Maybe you don't need
I would.
to.
I'm open to the idea of being regressed. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to be discovered, but I have a feeling everything is unfolding in perfect timing for you, my friend. Really, this is brilliant. Continue. Tell us more. I'm going to shut my mouth. I just wanted to bring that up for you to chew on for yourself a little bit.
Okay. So I hesitate to call myself a messenger because it just sounds so egotistical and stuff. It's just not who I am. But if I have a message, that's it. Folks, if you encounter these things and your life starts to change, take heart, because at the end of the journey, you're going to become a better person.
Yeah.
Even though the journey itself can be rough, because it's going to change you and it's going to astonish you. Suddenly you might be able to play basketball and you were a dork before, or play golf and you were a dork before, or you can sing and carry a tune now where before you couldn't. All kinds of beautiful things. And I think what happens is, you touched on it earlier, I think for some reason it unlocks some latent abilities that are already in you.
Absolutely. I believe that.
And there's a reason. I've been doing more and more research, and there's actually a maybe even a scientific explanation of why this happens. Apparently in our brains there's these little bodies in our brains that are called microtubules.
Mm-hmm. I'm familiar a little bit.
They vibrate at the quantum level. And I think that's what's happening. I think encounters with these things vibrates our microtubules at the quantum level, and it uncovers latent abilities in you when that happens. And the longer your exposure is to them, the greater the uncover, the greater the effect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's an interesting thought too. There's a lot of people wonder, okay, what the hell were the purpose of the pyramids? You know what I think the purpose of the pyramids were? I don't think those sarcophagi were for dying, and I think they were for lying, and I really do. I think they were spas. I think you go inside, you lay in there, and fill it full of 10,000 Egyptian cats. They all murmur, and it sets up a frequency, the vibration in the pyramid, and it vibrates the microtubules, and when you come out of the pyramid, you have abilities you didn't have when you walked into the pyramid.
Interesting.
I think it was a business model.
Where did that come from for you? What prompted you to start thinking about something like that? Really? Well, we all, if you want to...
I download stuff, I don't, like, the mining stuff was all downloaded. I actually had a daytime vision, just like you would see in the movies, and when I finally figured out what had happened geologically. So, and that continues to happen to me. I get realizations, I guess. I don't know what else to call them. So that's kind of where that comes. And I don't know if the theory I just laid out is... I don't recall ever even hearing it before. Have you?
Say it again.
When you walk into a pyramid, the purpose of them was that to vibrate your microtubules.
I had not heard that. No. I mean, obviously there are theories surrounding how the pyramids were built and what they were actually used for, but that particular thing, no, I had not heard that. I
don't think I ever have either. And it could be total BS. I don't know, but it's just a hunch that I have.
Well, I have a feeling, they say let's honor that hunch, man, and I have a feeling that we don't know, and perhaps it's neither here nor there at this moment in time. But you're just having epiphanies. You're an epiphany magnet. You're just having epiphanies. I'm laughing, but it's serious. It's beautiful. You said it perfectly. Somehow, for perhaps many of us, Kevin, these experiences, and they happen in so many ways, are helping to take what we have innately out of dormancy. They've been atrophied, and some agent comes in and awakens it. That's what it seems like. Don't worry about being looked at as a messenger. Those are just words. They're just words. We're all messengers for something, right?
That's a good.
We're
Yeah,
all
that's a good
messengers.
point.
You are
Yep.
indeed a messenger. And I love what you're doing. I think you're an amazing, amazing human being. And you're here
So
for a reason.
hear that.
You're here
It is. I don't know. I feel like I'm just a normal person, humble, you know?
Well, you can be both. You're normal, you're humble, and you're amazing. How about that?
Well, thank you. Much appreciated.
Listen, we're going to have to wind it down, man. But you know what? This has been great. And heck, okay, so we're back to our audio format. You know, we've been rolling out sort of new delivery models for our audience and video. We were very happy about the video approach that we've been using. But you know what? This worked out. It's been a relaxed conversation. It's been powerful. We're obviously going to have you back on the show. And next time, hopefully, we can get our Skype together. But I want to remind the journeyers that, you know, we've launched our Patreon platform, and I'm so excited about it. And some of our guests have been gracious enough to give us a little extra time to talk about some stuff that they wouldn't normally talk about to a larger audience. And so Kevin was also one who was kind enough to lend me another 15 minutes or so. So once you finish listening to this, I want you to come on over to patreon.com/higher journeys, and you will see, come on out. If you're a member already, great. You got it. And if not, please join us where our membership is growing. All right, folks, I don't know where we dropped off here. We got some weirdness going on. So what else is new? I was right in the middle of talking about my Patreon. I'm going to continue talking about it. Kevin's there. I'm here.
High strangeness. I call it high strangeness.
Well, what are we talking about? I'm not surprised. It's all good. Anyway, we're going to wind down. We're going on over to Patreon. I'm going to ask you to do the same. I'm going to say it again. It is www.patreon.com/higher journeys. Come on over, join us for the closed door chat. Kevin is going to give us a scoop on a couple of things he may not have talked about before, or at least not too much. So, Kevin, you going to join me? Going to do that?
Yeah. When and where?
Right after we
Well, you
hang
just said
up.
where. Oh, okay. Well, I got to go home. I got to run home. So.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to sign off with Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm about 10 minutes from my house, so maybe
Okay.
about 15 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, listen, final word, if you'd like to give a shout out to the journeyers, what would you leave them with, particularly in light of all that we're going through right now? What would you have to say?
I would say start telling God thank you.
I love it.
And when you say it from your heart, and if you doubt me, watch it change your life. But you have to really mean it. This isn't something you can fake. And if that's the only two words, at first that's the only thing I ever said to God. I would say, thank you, God. And, you know, I'd really mean it. But now I also include the words, use me. Use me. That's what I want to tell your listeners.
Okay. Well said. Let's leave it there. Thank you, Kevin Day. Thank you for all you do. You're an agent of that source. Don't ever forget it. And so are you, journeyers, each and every one of you. You know, our shows are going to get deeper and deeper as the situation gets deeper and deeper. This is what we're here for. These conversations do matter, and you all matter, and we love you. So on that note, I'm going to say,
I love you too. All right. Okay, bye.
Okay. Don't hang up, Kevin. Don't hang up. Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
All right. Bye, journeyers. We'll talk to you soon.